The cold November wind bit through my coat as I stood on the familiar porch of my childhood home, my hand frozen midway to the doorbell. Through the frosted glass, I could see the warm glow of Thanksgiving preparations, but the door swung open before I could knock, revealing my father's face twisted with rage. "You refused to sell your store for $650,000 when your brother needed it. You're no longer our daughter." His words sliced through the holiday air sharper than any winter wind. Behind him, my mother clutched her pearl necklace, tears streaming down her carefully made-up face, yet she remained silent. Over their shoulders, I caught a glimpse of Derek, my younger brother. His lips curved into a satisfied smirk. I felt my own mouth form a calm smile, knowing that the 3 hidden cameras I'd installed were capturing every second of this moment, the moment I'd been preparing for during the past 3 years. 6 months before that devastating Thanksgiving morning, my life had been moving along its carefully planned trajectory. My boutique clothing store, Alana's Closet, had just celebrated its 5th anniversary with record-breaking sales, and I was deep in negotiations to expand to 3 new locations across the state. The afternoon Derek burst through my store's front door changed everything. "Alana, I need to talk to you right now," he announced, causing several customers to look up from the racks they were browsing. His usually perfectly styled hair was disheveled, his designer suit wrinkled, and dark circles shadowed his eyes. I guided him to my office in the back, apologizing to my customers with a professional smile that never wavered. The moment the door closed, Derek collapsed into the chair across from my desk, his head in his hands. "My company is finished," he said, his voice cracking. "The investors are pulling out. I need $650,000 by the end of the month, or I'm gonna lose everything." I studied my younger brother, remembering the confident entrepreneur who'd promised our parents he'd be a millionaire by 30. He was 32 now, and from the desperation radiating from every pore, those millions were nowhere to be found. What happened to Tech Vision Solutions?" I asked, referring to his startup that our parents never stopped praising at family gatherings. "Last Christmas, you said you were about to close a $10 million deal." Derek's jaw tightened. "Market conditions changed. My competitors undercut me. The investors got cold feet." He looked up, his brown eyes blazing with familiar entitlement. "But that doesn't matter right now. You need to sell your store. I already found a buyer willing to pay $650,000 in cash." I leaned back in my chair, studying the financial projections spread across my desk for my expansion. "Derek, I'm not selling. I'm about to sign leases for 3 new locations. This business is my life's work." "Your life's work." He shot to his feet, slamming his palms on my desk. "A few pretty dresses and overpriced handbags. I'm trying to revolutionize the tech industry, and you're worried about your little shop." "My little shop employs 15 people and generates over $2 million in annual revenue," I replied evenly. "I'm not destroying what I've built because you mismanaged your company." Derek's face contorted with rage. "You selfish witch family is supposed to help family. When I make it big, you'll come crawling to me for help, and I'll remember this moment." He stormed out, leaving the door swinging open. My store manager, Jessica, poked her head in. "Everything okay, boss?" Fine," I said, though my hands were trembling. "Just family drama." That evening, my phone rang. Mom's contact photo smiled at me from the screen, but her voice was anything but warm. "Alana Marie Stevens, how could you refuse to help your brother?" "Mom, he wants me to sell my business. I've worked 12-hour days for 5 years to build this." "And Derek has worked just as hard on his company. He just needs a little help to get through this rough patch. You know how the tech industry is." I wanted to laugh at the irony. My parents had refused to help with my business loan applications, telling me retail was too risky, yet they'd poured their savings into every one of Derek's failed ventures. "Has Derek told you exactly why his investors are pulling out?" I asked. "Does it matter he's your brother? Family comes first." After we hung up, Something nagged at me. Derek's story didn't add up. Investors didn't just pull out overnight without cause. I made a decision that would change everything. I hired a private investigator. 2 weeks later, I sat in a coffee shop staring at the folder Marcus Chen had placed in front of me. The investigator was a former FBI financial crime specialist, and what he'd uncovered made my blood run cold. Your brother has been moving investor funds through multiple shell companies, Marcus explained, pointing to bank records. He's been using company money for personal expenses. Cars, vacations, gambling debts. The investors aren't pulling out because of market conditions. They're pulling out because they discovered he's been embezzling. My hands shook as I flipped through transaction records showing hundreds of thousands of dollars flowing through accounts in the Cayman Islands. This is fraud. He could go to prison. He's looking at serious federal charges if this comes to light, Marcus confirmed. My guess is he needs that $650,000 to cover what he stole before the audit happens next month. I thought about all the times Derek had flaunted his success, the expensive watches, the luxury car, the penthouse apartment, all of it built on stolen money. And now he wanted to steal from me too. Can you get me more evidence? I asked. Marcus nodded. I'll dig deeper, but Alana, be careful. Desperate people do desperate things. As I left the coffee shop, I realized my brother wasn't just irresponsible. He was a criminal. And somehow I knew he'd do anything to save himself, even if it meant destroying me. 2 weeks after my meeting with Marcus, our family gathered at my parents' colonial-style house in Westchester for my mother's 65th birthday. I arrived early to help with preparations, finding my mother in the kitchen, arranging her famous 7-layer chocolate cake. Alana, sweetheart, you look tired, she said, though her eyes didn't quite meet mine. The store keeping you busy. The expansion negotiations are complex, but I'm managing, I replied, setting down the wine I'd brought. She nodded absently, then said, Your brother's coming tonight. I hope you two can work through your differences. This family doesn't need discord. Before I could respond, Derek arrived with our father, both carrying wrapped gifts. Derek hugged our mother warmly, then gave me a curt nod. Throughout dinner, tension crackled beneath the surface of polite conversation. After cake, Derek cleared his throat. I wanted to update everyone on Tech Vision Solutions. He put on a brave smile. We're experiencing a temporary setback due to unprecedented market volatility. Several competitors have engaged in predatory practices that have impacted our investor relations. Our father reached across the table to squeeze Derek's shoulder. We know you'll bounce back, son. You always do. Actually, Derek continued, his voice catching with practiced emotion, I might need some short-term support to weather this storm, just until the new quarter when our pending contracts materialize. Without hesitation, our mother said, We have our retirement savings. How much do you need? My stomach dropped. Mom, Dad, wait. Before you make any financial decisions, you should know the full situation. Derek's eyes flashed dangerously. What situation, Alana? My temporary cash flow issue that you refused to help with. I pulled out my phone and opened the files Marcus had sent me. Derek, your investors aren't leaving because of market conditions. They're leaving because you've been embezzling funds. The dining room erupted. My mother gasped. My father's face turned purple. Derek shot to his feet. How dare you, he shouted. You hired someone to spy on me. I hired someone to verify your story. I corrected, pulling up bank records on my phone. Look at these transactions. Funds transferred from TechVision to personal accounts in the Cayman Islands. Payments for a Maserati, a boat trips to Vegas. My father snatched the phone, but instead of studying the evidence, he deleted the files. I won't have you spreading lies about your brother out of jealousy. Jealousy. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You've always resented Derek's success, my mother added, tears flowing. Ever since high school when he got into Harvard and you went to state school. Now that his star is rising, you want to tear him down. His star isn't rising, Mom. He's committing federal crimes. Derek had composed himself, switching to victim mode with practiced ease. I can't believe my own sister would fabricate evidence against me. Yes, I've made some accounting errors while learning to manage a growing company, but embezzlement, Alana, your hatred for me has gone too far. Oh, show them your bank statements, Derek, I challenged. Prove me wrong. I don't need to prove anything to someone who's trying to destroy me, he replied smoothly. Mom, Dad, I'm sorry Alana's jealousy has ruined your birthday dinner. My father stood his voice thunderous. Alana, I'm disgusted by your behavior. Your brother is going through the worst time of his life, and instead of helping, you're kicking him while he's down. I have copies of everything, I said desperately. Bank records, forged documents, evidence of fraud spanning 2 years. Forged documents. My mother laughed bitterly. You mean the forgeries you created to frame your brother? We know you've always been clever with computers, Alana, but using your skills for this? I stared at them in shock. They were rewriting reality before my eyes, choosing to believe Derek's lies over documented evidence. You're really going to give him your retirement money? What we do with our money is none of your business, my father said coldly. Derek is building something meaningful. You sell clothes. There's no comparison. The words hit me like physical blows. 5 years of 100-hour weeks of sacrificing relationships and sleep to build my business dismissed as just selling clothes. Meanwhile, Derek's criminal enterprise was meaningful. I should go, I said quietly, gathering my purse. Derek followed me to the door, speaking low enough that our parents couldn't hear. You think you're so smart hiring that investigator, but you just showed your hand, sis. Now I know exactly what you know, and I can prepare accordingly. You're going to prison, Derek. He smiled coldly. No, I'm not, because you're going to sell your store and give me the money, one way or another. That's never happening. We'll see. You know how persuasive I can be with Mom and Dad. By the time I'm done, they'll think you're the criminal, not me. I left my parents' house that night, knowing I'd lost more than an argument. I lost my family. They'd chosen their golden child over truth, over evidence, over me. But Derek had made a crucial mistake. He'd revealed his intentions, given me time to prepare. On the drive home, I called Marcus Chen. I need you to expand your investigation, and I need to start protecting my assets. He's coming for my business. I'll put you in touch with a good attorney, Marcus said, and Alana start documenting everything, every conversation, every interaction. Paper trails save lives in situations like this. As the city lights blurred past my windows, I thought about the birthday cake we'd shared, my mother's smile as she'd blown out the candles. They'd made their choice. Now I had to make mine. 3 weeks after the birthday disaster, Derek's situation deteriorated rapidly. Marcus's continued investigation revealed the full scope of his deception, and apparently, some investors had begun their own inquiries. My phone buzzed constantly with calls from my parents, which I let go to voicemail. Their messages grew increasingly desperate and accusatory. Sunday dinner had always been mandatory in the Stevens family, and despite everything, I decided to attend. I needed to face this head-on. I arrived to find my parents' driveway filled with unfamiliar cars. Through the window, I could see Derek holding court in the living room with several people in suits. I entered through the kitchen where my mother was arranging appetizers with shaking hands. She looked up, relief flooding her features. Alana, thank God you're here. Derek's meeting with potential buyers for your store. Excuse me. He found an investor willing to pay $650,000 in cash. Isn't that wonderful? More than enough to solve everyone's problems. Before I could respond, Derek appeared in the doorway. Ah, perfect timing. Come meet Mr. Garrison. He's very interested in acquiring Alana's closet. I followed him into the living room where a heavy-set man in an expensive suit rose to shake my hand. Something about his eager smile set off alarm bells. Ms. Stevens, your brother speaks highly of your business acumen, Garrison said. I'm prepared to make a generous offer. Cash transaction, quick closing. I appreciate your interest, but my store isn't for sale, I said firmly. Derek's jaw clenched. Alana, let's discuss this privately. In my father's study, Derek dropped his mask of civility. You're gonna sell. Garrison is offering more than your store is worth. Really? Because my last valuation put it at 900,000, and that's without the expansion locations. Your valuation is inflated and you know it. I pulled out my phone and showed him screenshots I'd taken that morning. Interesting, because according to Garrison's LinkedIn, he specializes in quick flips, and according to this real estate forum, he's already talking about a buyer lined up for 1.2 million. Derek's face paled. How did you... I do my research unlike you. This isn't about saving your company. This is another scam. You're getting a kickback from the flip, aren't you? The study door burst open. Our parents entered with Garrison close behind. What's the delay? Our father demanded. Mr. Garrison doesn't have all day. I addressed Garrison directly. Are you aware that Derek is under federal investigation for embezzlement, that any assets he helps you acquire might be subject to seizure? Garrison's eyes widened. He looked at Derek, then back at me. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Excuse me. He left quickly, his footsteps heavy on the stairs. You sabotaging brat. Derek lunged at me, but our father caught his arm. Alana, how could you? Our mother wailed. That was Derek's last hope. That was another con, I shot back. Derek was going to pocket the difference between the sale price and the flip. Ask him about his arrangement with Garrison. I don't need to ask anything, our father said coldly. I know my son. Do you know he's been stealing from you too? The words tumbled out before I could stop them. The room went silent. Derek's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing panic before he composed himself. What are you talking about? Our mother whispered. I pulled up the bank records Marcus had uncovered. Those checks you've been writing for Derek's business expenses, they're going into personal accounts. The $50,000 for equipment last month, it paid off his gambling debts at the Bellagio. More lies, Derek said, but his voice lacked conviction. Mom, Dad, she's trying to turn you against me. Our father studied the phone screen, his face growing ashen. These are our account numbers. How did you get this? The same way I got evidence of Derek's embezzlement, by hiring professionals to uncover the truth. You mean by invading our privacy, Derek shouted, by treating your own family like criminals. Only one criminal in this family, I replied. Our mother sank into a chair. Derek, tell me she's wrong. Tell me you haven't been taking our money. Derek knelt beside her, taking her hands. Mom, I've been protecting you and Dad from the stress of my business challenges. Yes, I've needed more support than anticipated, but every penny has gone towards saving the company. Show them receipts, I challenged. Show them proof of these equipment purchases, these vendor payments. I don't have to prove anything to you, Derek snarled. Our father's voice was deadly quiet. But you do have to prove it to us. Derek, we've given you over $300,000 this year alone. Show us where it went. Derek stood slowly, his victim act morphing into something harder. After everything I've done for this family's reputation, I'm the successful one. I'm the one with the Harvard MBA, the one who mingles with CEOs and investors. What's Alana, a shopkeeper? And now she's trying to destroy me out of spite. You're destroying yourself, I said. I'm just refusing to go down with you. We'll see about that. Derek straightened his tie, his composure returning. Mom, Dad, I'm hurt by your lack of faith, but I understand Alana's poisoned your minds. I'll give you time to think clearly. Just remember when my company recovers, when I'm worth millions. Remember who stood by me and who tried to tear me down. He left with the theatrical flair he'd perfected over years of manipulation. Our parents sat in stunned silence, the weight of truth beginning to crack their carefully constructed delusions. He needs help, our mother finally said. We should refinance the house, get him the best lawyers. Are you insane? I couldn't contain my frustration. He's been stealing from you. He's our son, our father said quietly. We can't abandon him. But you can abandon me. They looked at me with expressions I'd seen too many times before, the resignation that came with choosing Derek no matter the cost. You're strong, Alana, our mother said. You don't need us the way Derek does. I laughed bitterly. You're right. I don't need you. I never have. Because you made sure of that, didn't you? Every time you chose him, every time you dismissed my achievements, you taught me to survive without you. Congratulations. Your neglect made me successful. I left their house knowing this was far from over. Derek would escalate and our parents would enable him. But I was done playing defense. It was time to protect what I'd built with or without family support. The week following the confrontation at my parents' house, an unsettling calm fell over my life. Derek stopped calling, my parents went silent, and I threw myself into managing my store's expansion. I should have recognized the quiet before the storm. Friday afternoon, my childhood friend Sarah Martinez walked into Alana's closet. A successful lawyer specializing in family law, Sarah rarely shopped during business hours, and her expression immediately put me on edge. "We need to talk privately," she said, glancing around at the customers browsing nearby racks. In my office, Sarah set her briefcase on my desk with uncharacteristic heaviness. "Alana, I'm here as your friend, not officially as your lawyer, but you need to know what's happening." My stomach nodded. "What's Derek done now?" "He came to our firm yesterday, not to my department, thank God, but to speak with one of our partners about establishing conservatorship. Conservatorship, like for elderly people with dementia." Sarah's dark eyes filled with concern. "Or for adults deemed mentally incapable of managing their affairs. Derek's claiming you're showing signs of bipolar disorder and delusional thinking. He wants legal authority over your business assets to protect you from yourself." The room spun. I gripped the edge of my desk. "He can't do that. I'm perfectly healthy." "That's where it gets worse." Sarah pulled out her phone and showed me screenshots from social media. "He's been building a case for months. Look at these posts on local business forums." I read with growing horror. Anonymous accounts describing concerning behavior from the owner of Alana's closet. Claims of erratic mood swings, paranoid accusations against family members, reckless business decisions. The posts were dated weeks before our confrontation at the birthday dinner. "This is insane. None of this is true." "I know that, but Derek's been clever. He's gotten affidavits from 3 people claiming to have witnessed your unstable behavior." "What people?" Sarah consulted her notes. "A Dr. Mitchell Reeves, psychiatrist, claims he's been consulted about your condition by concerned family members. Also 2 former employees of yours, Janet Walsh and Patricia Garrett." Janet and Patricia were fired for stealing inventory 6 months ago. "Which Derek probably knows. He's likely paying them to lie." Sarah leaned forward. "Alana, this is a coordinated attack. He's trying to build enough doubt about your mental state to get a judge to grant temporary conservatorship. Once he has that, he can sell your business before you can fight back." My mind raced. Can he actually succeed? With enough manufactured evidence and a sympathetic judge, maybe, especially if your parents support his petition. "My parents?" The full weight of betrayal hit me. "They're in on this." Sarah nodded grimly. "When I did some discreet checking, I found out they've already had 2 meetings with Dr. Reeves. They've also been keeping some kind of journal. A journal. Documenting your supposed symptoms. Every business stress you've mentioned, every frustration you've expressed about Derek, twisted into evidence of mental instability." I thought about all our recent conversations. How my mother had asked probing questions about my sleep patterns, my stress levels. I thought she was finally showing concern for my well-being. Instead, she'd been gathering ammunition. "I need to see this journal," I said. "You can't. Not legally, but you need to start protecting yourself immediately. Document everything. Transfer assets into protected trusts. Most importantly, get your own psychiatric evaluation to establish your mental health." A knock interrupted us. Jessica, my store manager, peered in. "Sorry to interrupt, but there's a man here insisting he needs to speak with you about a medical matter." Sarah and I exchanged glances. Don't see him, she advised. It could be someone Derek sent to provoke a reaction they can use against you. But I was done hiding. Send him in, Jessica, and please stay as a witness. The man who entered was exactly what I expected, professionally dressed, carrying a medical bag with the practiced sympathy of someone used to dealing with difficult patients. Ms. Stevens, I'm Dr. Harold Preston. Your family asked me to check on you. I didn't request a consultation. He smiled condescendingly. Often, those experiencing mental distress don't recognize their need for help. Your brother described some concerning incidents, paranoid accusations, aggressive behavior delusions about his business dealings. My brother is under investigation for embezzlement. That's not a delusion. Yes. He mentioned you'd hired private investigators to spy on family members. That's quite troubling. Surveillance paranoia is a common symptom of several conditions. Sarah stood. Dr. Preston, I'm Ms. Stevens' attorney. Do you have credentials I can review? He fumbled for his wallet, clearly not expecting legal presence. Sarah examined his license with practiced scrutiny. Interesting. You're based in Connecticut. Rather far to travel for a house call? How exactly do you know Derek Stevens? That's confidential. Not when you're attempting to ambush my client with an unwanted psychiatric evaluation. Please leave or I'll call the police. Dr. Preston retreated hastily. After he left, Sarah turned to me with fierce determination. This is worse than I thought. They're escalating quickly, which means Derek's more desperate than we realized. What do I do? We go on offense. First, we get you evaluated by reputable psychiatrists to establish a clear record of your mental health. Second, we document every bit of Derek's fraud and your parents' complicity. Third, we prepare for war, because that's what this is now. That evening, I sat in my apartment scrolling through family photos on my laptop. Images of happier times mocked me. Derek and me as children building sandcastles at the shore. My parents beaming at his Harvard graduation while I stood in the background. The pattern had always been there, I realized. I'd just been too hopeful to see it. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. A photo appeared my parents and Derek at a restaurant raising glasses in a toast. The accompanying message chilled me. Planning your future without you. Soon everything you have will be mine. I screenshot the message, adding it to my growing evidence file. They wanted to erase me, to rewrite reality, until I was nothing but a cautionary tale of mental illness and failure. But they'd underestimated the strength their neglect had forged in me. Every slight, every dismissal, every moment of being second best had built an armor they couldn't penetrate. I opened my laptop and began composing emails to my expansion partners, my employees, my customers. If Derek wanted to paint me as unstable, I'd show the world exactly how stable and strategic I could be. The war for my future had begun, and I intended to win. 3 months before that fateful Thanksgiving morning, I made the decision that would save everything I'd built. After Sarah's warning about the conservatorship plot, I knew playing defense wasn't enough. I needed to become someone Derek and my parents couldn't destroy. The first step was protecting my mental health narrative. I scheduled appointments with Dr. Alana Rodriguez, one of the city's most respected psychiatrists. She listened to my story with professional concern, conducting thorough evaluations over several sessions. Your psychological profile shows remarkable resilience, she told me during our third meeting. No signs of bipolar disorder, delusional thinking, or any condition that would impair your judgment. In fact, your response to family trauma demonstrates exceptional coping skills. Would you be willing to testify to that if needed? Absolutely. What your family is attempting constitutes abuse. I'll document everything thoroughly. Next came the surveillance. I hired a security company to install hidden cameras in my store, my car, and discreetly around my apartment building's common areas. The owner, Marcus Washington, was a former police detective who understood the gravity of my situation. These cameras are undetectable, he assured me, showing me how to access the feeds from my phone. Everything uploads to a secure cloud server. Even if someone destroys the physical devices, you'll have the recordings. The financial restructuring proved more complex. Sarah introduced me to Robert Chang, a financial attorney who specialized in asset protection. We spent weeks creating an ironclad trust structure. Your business assets will be transferred to the Alana Marie Trust, Robert explained, spreading documents across his conference table. You'll maintain control as trustee, but legally the assets won't be in your personal name. If anyone tries to establish conservatorship over you personally, they can't touch the trust. What about my expansion plans? We're creating subsidiary LLCs for each new location. Everything flows through the trust. It's completely legal and protects you from both creditors and predatory family members. While I built my defenses, Marcus Chen's investigation into Derek uncovered something shocking. He called me one evening, his usually calm voice tight with urgency. "Can you meet me tonight? What I've found, you need to see this immediately." We met at a 24-hour diner outside the city. Marcus slid a thick folder across the booth. "Your brother's fraud goes deeper than embezzlement. He's been forging documents for years, including several with your parents' signatures. Look at this." I examined the papers. Power of attorney documents dated 2 years ago, giving Derek complete control over my parents' finances. The signatures looked authentic, but something was off. "These are fake," confirmed by a handwriting expert. But here's the kicker. Your parents' bank believes they're real. Derek's been slowly draining their accounts, moving money through complex transfers to offshore holdings. "How much has he taken?" "At least 400,000, possibly more. Their retirement is gone, Alana. They just don't know it yet." The implications hit me hard. When they find out, they'll be destroyed. And based on Derek's pattern, he'll blame you somehow. But there's more. Marcus pulled out another set of documents. I found incorporation papers for a company called Stevens Family Holdings, LLC. Derek created it last month, listing himself as CEO and your parents as board members. Guess what asset he's trying to transfer into it? My blood ran cold. My store! The building your store occupies. He's been researching adverse possession laws, quiet title actions. If he can't take your business directly, he's planning to take the real estate under it. I spent the next month building alliances. My employees became my strongest supporters. Jessica, my store manager, had witnessed enough of Derek's behavior to provide crucial testimony. My expansion partners, initially concerned about the family drama, stood by me after I presented them with the truth. "Anyone who builds a business like yours while dealing with that kind of sabotage has my respect," said David Kim, my primary investor. "We're moving forward with the expansion, and I'm recommending additional security measures for all locations." The forensic accountants I hired worked quietly but efficiently. They uncovered a web of Derek's financial crimes that spanned 5 states and involved over $3 million in investor funds. The FBI would be very interested in their findings when the time was right. 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, I received an unexpected visit. Mrs. Dorothy Martinez, our next-door neighbor from childhood, appeared at my store just before closing. "Alana, honey, I need to speak with you," she said, clutching her purse tightly. "It's about your parents." We sat in my office as she revealed her secret. "I've been recording things, not intentionally at first, but my new security system picks up audio from their backyard. After what I heard last month, I started paying attention." She handed me a USB drive. "Your parents and Derek planning horrible things, talking about having you committed, stealing your business. Your mother actually said you'd be better off in an institution where you couldn't embarrass the family anymore." Tears stung my eyes, but I blinked them back. "Why are you helping me?" "Because I've watched you since you were little, watched how they treated you versus Derek. It wasn't right then, and it's not right now. That boy has them wrapped around his finger, but he's poison. You're the only decent one in that family." The recordings were damning. Clear discussions of the conservatorship plot, Derek bragging about the forged documents, my parents agreeing to testify about my supposed mental illness. Most chilling was Derek saying, "Once she's locked up, we'll have everything. The store, the expansion money, all of it. She'll be too medicated to even know what happened." I made copies of everything, distributing them to Sarah, my financial attorney, and a safety deposit box. The final piece fell into place when Marcus discovered Derek's gambling debts exceeded $1 million and that dangerous people were growing impatient. "He owes money to people who don't accept bankruptcy as payment," Marcus warned. "He's beyond desperate now. Be very careful." The week of Thanksgiving, I made my final preparations. I updated my will, ensuring my business would go to my employees if anything happened to me. I pre-wrote emails to every major news outlet in the state detailing Derek's crimes, with attached evidence set to send unless I canceled them every 24 hours. I installed cameras at my parents' house during a fake utility inspection I'd arranged. The night before Thanksgiving, I sat in my apartment surrounded by evidence boxes and legal documents. My phone rang. Mom. "Alana, you are coming tomorrow, aren't you? It wouldn't be Thanksgiving without the whole family." The false sweetness in her voice made my skin crawl. They thought I was walking into their trap, unaware and unprepared. They had no idea that every word they spoke was being recorded, that every crime they'd committed was documented, that their victim had become a warrior. "I'll be there, Mom," I said calmly. "Wouldn't miss it for the world." As I hung up, I looked at the photo on my mantle. 5-year-old me beaming at the camera, full of hope and trust. That little girl deserved justice. Tomorrow she'd finally get it. The 2 weeks leading up to Thanksgiving played out like a psychological thriller where everyone knew the plot except pretended otherwise. Derek's investors had filed official complaints with the SEC, and 3 lawsuits landed on his doorstep. Yet my family maintained a facade of normalcy that was almost disturbing in its completeness. My mother called daily, her voice dripping with manufactured concern. "Alana, darling, you've been working so hard. Why don't you come for Sunday dinner? Just family, nice and quiet." I declined each invitation, claiming busy schedules with the expansion. Meanwhile, my cameras captured increasingly frantic meetings at my parents' house. Derek pacing their living room, gesticulating wildly. My father on the phone with lawyers. My mother crying over photo albums as if I were already dead. The situation exploded on a Tuesday afternoon. I was reviewing contracts in my office when Jessica burst through the door, face flushed with alarm. "Alana, you need to see what's happening out front." Through my store's windows, I saw Derek standing on the sidewalk with our parents, all 3 looking like they'd dressed for a funeral. Black clothes, somber expressions. A small crowd of shoppers had gathered, sensing drama. "Should I call the police?" Jessica whispered. "Not yet, but start recording with your phone. Make sure you get everything." I stepped outside, keeping my expression neutral. "Mom, Dad, Derek, what brings you here?" My mother stepped forward, tears already flowing. "Alana, we're here because we love you. We want to help you through this difficult time." "What difficult time would that be?" Derek moved closer, his voice loud enough for bystanders to hear. "Your mental breakdown, sis. The paranoid delusions, the false accusations against family. We're worried sick." Several customers had their phones out recording. Perfect. Let them see who the real performer was. "I'm feeling quite well, actually. Business is booming. Expansion on track. No breakdowns here." "Denial is a symptom," Derek said sagely. "Dr. Reeves explained it all to us. But there's hope. We found an excellent facility that specializes in cases like yours." My father held up a brochure. Peaceful Pines Psychiatric Center. I recognized it from Marcus's research. A private institution where Derek's college roommate worked as an administrator. They'd already arranged my imprisonment. "That's thoughtful," I said calmly. "But I have my own psychiatrist. Dr. Rodriguez says I'm in perfect mental health. Would you like to see her reports?" "Those doctors you're paying to lie for you," my mother wailed. "Oh, Alana, you're sicker than we thought." A woman in the crowd spoke up. "Excuse me, but I've been shopping here for 3 years. Miss Stevens has always been professional and kind. This feels like harassment." Derek whirled on her. "Ma'am, you don't understand the situation. My sister is very ill. She's been making wild accusations, hiring people to stalk our family. Just last week, she attacked our elderly mother." "I did no such thing," I said firmly. But my mother was ready for her starring role. She pulled down her sleeve to reveal bruises on her arm. Fresh bruises that hadn't been there when my cameras caught her gardening yesterday. "She grabbed me," my mother sobbed. "When I tried to reason with her about selling the store, she became violent." The crowd murmured uncertainly. Some continued recording, others looked uncomfortable. This was exactly what Derek wanted. Public doubt about my stability. "Those bruises weren't there yesterday," I stated. "I have security footage of you in your garden wearing short sleeves, no marks on your arms." "Now she's surveilling our home," Derek announced. "You see, the paranoia, the stalking behavior, this is exactly what Dr. Reeves warned us about." A police car pulled up, 2 officers emerging. Of course, Derek had called them in advance. Officer Bennett, whom I recognized from previous community events, approached cautiously. "We got a call about a disturbance," he said. "Ms. Stevens, are you all right?" "I'm fine, officer. My family is causing a scene at my place of business." Derek stepped forward, all concern. "Officer, our sister is experiencing a mental health crisis. She's been making threats, false accusations. We're trying to get her help, but she's resistant." Officer Bennett looked between us, clearly uncomfortable. "Has anyone been hurt?" "She attacked our mother," Derek said quickly. "We have photos of the bruises." "Or from bruises that appeared overnight, conveniently before this ambush," I countered. "Officer, I have security footage from my store showing them planning this confrontation. Would you like to see it?" Before he could answer, a news van pulled up. Channel 7, the local station. Derek's confidence visibly wavered. He hadn't counted on media attention. The reporter Maria Santos approached with her cameraman. "We received multiple calls about an incident. What's happening here?" My mother, not understanding the danger, launched into her rehearsed speech about her poor mentally ill daughter who needed help. Derek tried to stop her, but she was in full performance mode. "We just want our daughter to get treatment," she cried to the camera. "She's accused her brother of terrible things, hired investigators to harass us. The paranoia is destroying our family." Maria turned to me. "Ms. Stevens, would you like to respond?" I saw the trap Derek had set, but also the opportunity. "My brother is under federal investigation for embezzling over $3 million from investors. Rather than face consequences, he's attempting to have me declared mentally incompetent to seize my business assets. I have documentation of everything." "She's delusional," Derek shouted, but panic crept into his voice. "Then let's call the FBI office right now," I suggested calmly. "I have the lead investigator's direct number. Agent Thompson would be happy to confirm the investigation." Derek grabbed our parents, hustling them toward their car. "We're leaving. Alana, when you're ready for help, we'll be waiting." As they retreated, my mother turned back, and for just a moment, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Not love, not concern, but fear. She was beginning to realize that their perfect son might not be so perfect after all. The crowd dispersed slowly, many approaching me with words of support. Maria Santos asked for a follow-up interview, which I politely declined. For now. Officer Bennett lingered, his expression thoughtful. "Ms. Stevens, if you feel threatened, please don't hesitate to file a restraining order." "Thank you. I may take you up on that." Inside my store, my employees gathered around, shaken but supportive. Jessica hugged me tightly. "That was insane. Your own family in broad daylight." "They're desperate," I said. "Derek's running out of time and options. This was their Hail Mary to discredit me publicly." That evening, the local news ran the story. Maria Santos had done her homework, discovering Derek's lawsuits and the investor complaints. The narrative my family tried to spin unraveled on live television. My phone exploded with messages, customers expressing support, business associates reassuring me of their confidence, and one text from an unknown number that made my blood run cold. "You think you won today? Thanksgiving is coming. We'll be ready." I saved the message, adding it to my evidence file. They'd shown their hand publicly, now revealed their strategy to the world. But instead of weakening me, they'd given me exactly what I needed: witnesses to their lies, video evidence of their harassment, and public sympathy for my position. 3 days until Thanksgiving. 3 days until the final confrontation. I spent the evening reviewing my preparations with Sarah, ensuring every legal protection was in place. Whatever they planned for Thanksgiving dinner, I'd be ready. The war was no longer in the shadows. It was out in the open, and I was done being their victim. Thanksgiving morning dawned crisp and clear, the kind of perfect autumn day that belonged in a movie. I dressed carefully, choosing a professional but approachable outfit. Navy blazer, cream blouse, dark jeans, respectable enough for family dinner, formal enough for what was really going to happen. Sarah waited in her car 2 blocks from my parents' house, ready with a stack of legal documents and her phone on speed dial to the police. We'd gone over the plan a dozen times. I wore 3 different recording devices, 1 visible in my pocket, 2 hidden. The camera feeds from my parents' house streamed directly to a secure server. I parked on the street, noting the unusual number of cars in the driveway. Derek's Maserati, of course. Another expensive sedan I didn't recognize. Through the dining room window, I could see figures moving around the table. The walk to the front door felt both endless and too quick. I raised my hand to ring the doorbell, but the door opened before I could touch it. My father stood there blocking the entrance, his face carved from stone. "You refused to sell your store for $650,000 when your brother needed it," he said, his voice carrying down the street. "You're no longer our daughter." Behind him, my mother appeared, clutching her pearls. "All our assets will go to your brother. You've made your choice, Alana. You chose your little shop over family." Derek materialized beside them, unable to hide his smirk. Behind him stood 2 men in suits, lawyers by their look. One held a folder thick with documents. "Actually," Derek said smoothly, "we need to discuss some signatures. You see, there's been a misunderstanding about the ownership of your store building." I smiled calmly, which clearly wasn't the reaction they expected. A misunderstanding. How interesting. Is that what we're calling fraud now? My father's face flushed. "How dare you come here on Thanksgiving and continue your lies?" "I brought evidence," I said, loud enough for any neighbors to hear. "Would you like to see the FBI case files, the forged signatures, the stolen retirement funds?" "You're sick," my mother spat. "Derek warned us you'd escalate your delusions." I pulled out my visible phone, making a show of checking it. "Sarah, are you getting all this good? Keep the line open to Officer Bennett." Derek's confidence cracked slightly. "Who's Sarah?" "My attorney. She's nearby with some interesting documents for your friends here." I nodded at the lawyers. "Gentlemen, I hope Derek disclosed that he's under federal investigation when he hired you. Attorney-client privilege doesn't cover conspiracy to commit fraud." The lawyers exchanged uneasy glances. One cleared his throat. "We're here merely to witness some family documents." Forged documents," I interrupted. "Like the power of attorney Derek faked to drain my parents' retirement, or the deed transfer he's attempting from my store." My mother lunged forward, finger pointing. "Get off our property. You're trespassing." "Actually," I said, pulling out my phone again, "I'm responding to an invitation. I have your voicemail from 3 days ago begging me to come for Thanksgiving dinner. Would you like me to play it for everyone?" Derek shouldered past our parents. "Enough games, Alana. Sign the papers or things get very uncomfortable for you." Uncomfortable how another fake psychiatric evaluation, more bruises appearing on Mom overnight. Or did you hire someone to plant drugs in my car? His face went white. Behind me, car doors slammed. Not Sarah, she was maintaining position, but 3 people approached: Mrs. Martinez from next door, Maria Santos from Channel 7, and surprisingly, Marcus Chen. "Hope you don't mind," Mrs. Martinez said sweetly, "but when I saw all the cars, I worried something was wrong. I brought friends to help." Maria's cameraman was already filming. "Ms. Stevens, is this the Thanksgiving ambush you warned might happen?" My family stood frozen in the doorway, caught between slamming it shut and maintaining their victim narrative. Derek recovered first, switching to his concerned brother act. "This is a private family matter," he said to the camera. "My sister is unwell and has brought strangers to disrupt our holiday." "I'm not a stranger," Mrs. Martinez said firmly. "I've lived next door for 30 years. I've watched this family operate. Would you like me to share what I've observed, Derek?" "And I'm here," Marcus said quietly, "because Ms. Stevens hired me to investigate financial crimes. The FBI will be very interested in my findings." My father found his voice. "Get off our property, all of you. We'll call the police." "Please do," I said. "I'm sure they'd love to see the evidence of Derek's embezzlement. Oh, and the forged documents giving him power of attorney over your accounts. Did you know your retirement is gone, every penny Derek could steal?" My mother's face crumpled. "That's impossible. Derek manages our investments. He's growing them." "Check your accounts," I urged. "Right now. Pull up your bank app." "Don't listen to her lies," Derek said quickly, but sweat beaded on his forehead. My father, perhaps sensing the truth, pulled out his phone. His fingers trembled as he navigated to his banking app. The color drained from his face as he stared at the screen. "Helen," he whispered to my mother, "the retirement account. It's empty." "That's impossible." My mother snatched the phone, her eyes widening in horror. $400,000. Where? Derek's mask finally slipped completely. "You gave me that money for investments." "The market crashed. It's not my fault." "You said it was growing," my father said weakly. "You showed us statements." "Forged statements," I provided. "Just like he forged your signatures to access the accounts. It's all in the FBI files." The lawyers Derek had brought were already backing away. One muttered something about ethical violations and practically ran to his car. The other followed quickly. "You did this," Derek snarled at me, abandoning all pretense. "If you just sold your damn store, none of this would have happened." "My store was never going to save you," I replied. "You owe over $3 million to investors, another $1 million to casino markers. My $650,000 would have bought you maybe a month." Maria Santos stepped closer, microphone extended. "Mr. Stevens, would you like to comment on the federal investigation?" Derek whirled on our parents. "This is your fault. You made me like this, always pushing, always demanding success. I did what I had to do." "You stole from us," my mother whispered, tears streaming. "Your own parents." "You gave it willingly," Derek shouted. "Every time I asked, you threw money at me, but her," he pointed at me, "she hoards her precious store like it matters. She could have saved all of us." "I could have enabled you to steal more," I corrected. "There's a difference." Police sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Derek heard them too, his face cycling through panic rage and desperation. "This isn't over," he hissed at me. "You've destroyed this family." "No, Derek, you did that all by yourself." The police cars pulled up, Officer Bennett emerging along with 2 other officers. Behind them, unexpectedly, came 2 FBI agents in dark suits. "Derek Stevens," one agent said, "we have a warrant for your arrest on charges of wire fraud, embezzlement, and money laundering." As they read Derek his rights, my parents stood in their doorway, looking lost and broken. The Thanksgiving they'd planned, ambushing me into signing away my life's work, had become their son's arrest on federal charges. "Alana?" My mother reached out weakly. "We didn't know. We thought—" "You thought I was the problem," I said quietly. "You always have. Even now, watching him get arrested, part of you still blames me." I turned to go, but my father's voice stopped me. "The house. If our retirement is gone—" "I know," I said. "I've already bought it from the bank. You'll receive an eviction notice next week. 30 days to vacate." Their shock was complete. The house they'd mortgaged to fund Derek's crimes, the home where they'd plotted against me now, belonged to their discarded daughter. As Derek was driven away in handcuffs, I stood on the lawn where I'd played as a child, where I'd always been second best, where I'd learned that family could be your greatest threat. The cameras captured it all: the arrest, my parents' devastation, the vindication of truth over carefully crafted lies. Happy Thanksgiving. I said to no one in particular, then walked back to my car, leaving the past behind on that perfect autumn morning. I sat in my car 2 blocks away, hands steady on the wheel despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins. Through my phone, I could see the feeds from the cameras around my parents' house. Federal agents were carrying out boxes of documents while my parents stood on their lawn, looking like refugees from their own life. Sarah's car pulled up beside mine. She got out and slipped into my passenger seat, her usually composed face glowing with excitement. "That was magnificent," she said. "Did you know the FBI would be here today?" I had a suspicion. Agent Thompson mentioned they were close to moving, and what better day than when Derek thought he had me cornered. I pulled up my phone, showing her the text I'd received that morning from Marcus Chen. My investigator has been feeding them information for weeks. On speaker, I called Sarah officially. "Are you ready to file?" "Everything's prepared," she confirmed. "Criminal charges against Derek for fraud, attempted theft through deception, conspiracy to commit false imprisonment and harassment, plus civil suits for defamation and intentional infliction of emotional distress." "What about my parents?" "Conspiracy charges if you want them. They knowingly participated in the conservatorship plot and the attempt to steal your business." I watched my mother collapse onto the lawn, my father trying to comfort her while shouting at the agents. Part of me felt a twinge of sympathy, but then I remembered the journal they'd kept documenting my supposed mental illness, the meetings with corrupt doctors, the bruises my mother had given herself to frame me. File everything, I decided. They made their choice. From my parents' house, more drama unfolded. Channel 7's news van had been joined by 2 other local stations. Maria Santos was interviewing Mrs. Martinez, who was sharing 30 years of observations about the Stevens family dynamics. "That poor girl was always second best," Mrs. Martinez said on my phone screen. "They gave Derek everything. Private schools, new cars, bail money when he got in trouble. Alana, she worked 3 jobs to put herself through college. Built that business from nothing while they told her she was wasting her time." My phone buzzed. Marcus Chen was texting updates from inside the federal operation. "They found everything. Forged documents going back 5 years. Your brother kept trophies. Original signatures, he traced practice forgeries. He's looking at 20 years minimum." Another text. "Your parents' computers have evidence of the conservatorship plot. Emails with Derek about having you committed. Your mother researching mental hospitals. Your father asking about power of attorney over your business." Sarah was on her phone with the courthouse. "I'm filing for emergency restraining orders against all 3 of them. With Derek in custody, your parents might get desperate." Through the cameras, I saw my father notice the devices I'd had installed. He pointed at one, shouting something I couldn't hear. Then he grabbed a garden rake, trying to knock it down. An FBI agent stopped him. "Destroying evidence, Dad," I murmured. "That's a federal crime, too." My store manager, Jessica, called. "Alana, are you okay? The news is showing your brother getting arrested. Customers are asking if you're all right." "I'm fine, better than fine. Can you and the team handle Black Friday prep without me today?" "Of course. Take care of yourself. We're all here for you." The support from my chosen family warmed me more than my blood family ever had. While my parents had plotted against me, my employees had stood by me. While Derek had tried to destroy my reputation, my customers had defended me. Agent Thompson called next. "Ms. Stevens, excellent timing with those camera feeds. We've been building our case, but watching them plan to ambush you gave us probable cause to move today." "What happens now?" "Your brother will be arraigned Monday. Given the flight risk and the amount stolen, bail will be substantial if granted at all. We'll need your testimony for the grand jury." What about my parents? That depends on what we find. So far, it looks like they were victims of some of his schemes, but co-conspirators in others. The attempt to have you declared incompetent is serious. Federal or state charges are both possible. After we hung up, I drove to my store. Black Friday decorations were going up, and the familiar bustle of commerce soothed my frayed nerves. In my office, I found flowers from my expansion partner's notes from employees, and even a fruit basket from my competitors across town with a card reading, "Nobody deserves what you're going through. Stay strong." Sarah arrived an hour later with filed paperwork. Restraining orders are in process. I also filed the civil suits. Derek's assets will be frozen, which includes that Maserati he loves so much. What about victim restitution? You're not his only victim, but you're the only one who didn't actually lose money to him. The investors he defrauded will have priority, but the defamation case is solid. He publicly accused you of mental illness, hired people to lie about you, created false evidence. The damages could be substantial. My phone rang, an unknown number, but I recognized the voice immediately. My mother calling from a neighbor's phone. "Alana, please, we need to talk. Your father, he's having chest pains, the stress." "Call an ambulance," I said calmly. "We can't afford an ambulance. You bought our house. Our retirement is gone. Derek is in jail. You've destroyed us." I exposed the truth. What you do with that truth is your choice. And Mom, don't contact me again. There's a restraining order being processed. "You're filing restraining orders against your own parents." Her voice rose to a shriek. "What kind of monster have you become?" "The kind that protects herself from people who would destroy her. Goodbye, Mom." I hung up and blocked the number. Within minutes, 3 more unknown numbers called. I let them all go to voicemail, documenting each attempted contact for the restraining order. That evening, the news coverage was extensive. Tech entrepreneur arrested in multi-million-dollar fraud scheme, read the Channel 7 Chiron. Maria Santos reported live from outside my parents' house, detailing the family drama that had led to federal charges. Sources say Derek Stevens attempted to force his sister to sell her successful business to cover his debts, going so far as to orchestrate a plan to have her declared mentally incompetent. Maria reported. The scheme unraveled when FBI agents arrested him this Thanksgiving morning. They showed footage of Derek being led away in handcuffs, my parents' devastated faces, and me walking calmly to my car. The narrative was clear: the golden child had fallen and the scapegoat had survived. My lawyer called with one final update. "The FBI wants to know if you'd be willing to wear a wire. They think your parents might make incriminating statements if they could meet with you." "Absolutely not," I said firmly. "I'm done being their victim, even to help build cases. I've given them all the evidence I have. The rest is up to the justice system." That night, I ate Thanksgiving dinner alone in my apartment, but I didn't feel lonely. My phone buzzed constantly with messages of support. My employees had organized their own gathering and sent photos. My business partners checked in. Even customers reached out through social media. I'd lost the family I was born into, but I'd protected the life and family I'd chosen. Derek would spend the holidays in federal custody. My parents would spend it homeless, once their eviction process, their retirement gone, their golden child revealed as a common criminal. And me, I'd spend it planning my expansion, surrounded by people who valued me for who I was, not what they could take from me. The legal system would handle the rest. My war was won. The day after Thanksgiving. Black Friday should have been chaos at my store. Instead, it became something unexpected, a community rallying point. Customers flooded in not just for deals, but to show support. Many had seen the news coverage. Others had heard through the lightning-fast suburban gossip network. "Is it true your brother tried to steal your business?" asked Mrs. Chen, a regular customer, as she picked out scarves. "He tried," I confirmed. "He failed." By noon, we'd broken our single-day sales record. Jessica pulled me aside, tears in her eyes. People keep saying they're shopping here specifically to support you. Mrs. Patterson just bought $500 worth of clothes and said, "This is what family should do. Build each other up, not tear each other down." My phone had been silent all morning. The restraining orders must have been served. But as I was helping a customer, Sarah burst through the door, face flushed with urgency. "We need to talk. Now. Something big is happening." In my office, she pulled up news footage on her tablet. My parents were standing on their lawn, my lawn technically, giving an impromptu press conference. My father spoke while my mother wept theatrically beside him. "We're victims too," he declared to the gathered reporters. "Our son deceived us, yes, but our daughter has shown no mercy. She's throwing us out of our home of 40 years. What kind of child is that to elderly parents?" I laughed bitterly. "Elderly, they're in their 60s and in perfect health." "There's more," Sarah said. "They've hired a PR firm. They're painting themselves as victims of both children, Derek the criminal and you, the heartless daughter who's making them homeless." Before I could respond, Mrs. Martinez appeared on screen. The reporters had caught her watching from her yard, and she marched over to my parents with the determination of a woman who'd held her tongue too long. "Both victims," she said loudly. "You want to talk about victims? Let me tell you what I've recorded over the years." My parents tried to retreat, but the cameras followed. Mrs. Martinez pulled out her phone, scrolling through files. "On July 4th, 2018, she began. I recorded you screaming at Alana because she couldn't close her store to attend Derek's party. You called her ungrateful, selfish, said she'd never amount to anything." "That's private family business," my mother protested. March 2020, Mrs. Martinez continued. "You told Alana she should be grateful Derek even acknowledged her existence, that she was lucky to be included in family events at all." "You had no right to record us," my father shouted. "Whoa, one-party consent state," Mrs. Martinez said smoothly. "I was in my own yard. Your voices carried. But here's the best one. October this year, you and Derek planning how to have Alana committed, discussing which judge might be sympathetic, calculating how long it would take to sell her store once you had control." She played the audio tinny but clear through her phone speaker. The reporters pressed closer, capturing every word. My parents' voices discussing my future institutionalization with the casual tone of planning a grocery list. "We were worried about her mental health," my mother cried. "So worried you practiced your testimony." Mrs. Martinez switched to another recording. "Listen to this. You rehearsing what you'd tell the judge. Practicing crying on cue." The press conference descended into chaos. My parents fled inside while reporters shouted questions. Maria Santos turned to the camera with barely concealed excitement. "This developing story continues to reveal disturbing patterns of family manipulation and fraud. We'll have more at 6. Sarah and I watched in stunned silence. Then my phone rang. Marcus Chen. "Are you watching the news?" he asked. "Because there's more coming. The FBI just released Derek's booking documents. The official charges include 37 counts of wire fraud, 18 counts of money laundering, and 12 counts of identity theft. But here's the kicker. They found a victim list." "How many?" 43 individuals, mostly elderly investors from your parents' church and country club. Total stolen $8.7 million. I sank into my chair. $8.7 million. Your parents' retirement was just pocket change to him. He's been running this for years, using your family's reputation to gain trust. Your father's position on the church board, your mother's charity connections. Derek leveraged it all. The store phone started ringing. Jessica fielded calls while I processed this information. My brother wasn't just a desperate gambler who'd made bad choices. He was a calculating predator who'd used our family as camouflage for massive fraud. Sarah's phone buzzed. "The FBI wants to know if you'll speak to the victims group. Some of them are forming a coalition for the civil suits." "Of course." That afternoon, I met with 12 of Derek's victims in my store's community room. They ranged from retirees who'd lost their life savings to small business owners he'd convinced to invest in his fake tech company. Their stories were heartbreakingly similar. "He was so charming," said Eleanor Walsh, an 80-year-old widow. "Showed up at church with your parents. Your mother introduced him as her successful son, said we'd be foolish not to invest. He had documentation," added Robert Kim, whose family restaurant was now facing bankruptcy. "Professional presentations, fake contracts, even showed us a Time magazine article about young entrepreneurs that featured his photo." The article was real, Eli explained, but Derek was just in a group photo at a conference. He built an entire persona around that one picture. Harold Patterson, whose construction company had lost $2 million, leaned forward. "Your parents vouched for him, every time. They attended investor dinners, smiled for photos, assured us our money was safe." "They thought it was safe," I said carefully. "Derek was stealing from them too. Were they," Eleanor's voice turned sharp, "or were they getting a cut until the money ran out?" I couldn't answer that. The investigation would determine how complicit my parents had been. But looking at these victims, seeing their pain and betrayal, I made a decision. "I want to help," I said. "I can't return your money. I never took it, but I'll testify. I'll share every piece of evidence I have. And," I took a breath, "I'm establishing a fund from my store's profits to help with legal fees. Derek destroyed lives. The least I can do is help fight back." The room erupted in surprised gratitude. Several people cried. Harold shook my hand with both of his, too emotional to speak. That evening, as we prepared for extended Black Friday hours, Jessica approached with her tablet. "You need to see this." A video had gone viral. Someone in the victims' meeting had recorded my offer to help. The comments were overwhelming. "This is what real family looks like. She's helping strangers her brother robbed while her parents defend him." Not all heroes wear capes. Some run boutiques. My phone, silent all day, suddenly buzzed. A text from a number I recognized. My Aunt Patricia, my mother's sister, who lived in California. "Alana, I just saw the news. I'm flying out tomorrow. Helen and Richard have lost their minds, and Derek. I always knew something was off about that boy. You did the right thing. Family isn't supposed to be a license to destroy each other." For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt tears threaten. One family member at least saw the truth. Sarah appeared at my elbow. "The FBI released more information. They found Derek's real books. He kept detailed records of every scam, every victim, every dollar stolen. He even rated victims by gullibility." "Please tell me my parents weren't highly rated." "Actually," Sarah showed me a screenshot. "He had them listed as primary assets, unlimited trust. He wasn't stealing from them the same way. He was using them to add legitimacy to his schemes. Every investor trusted Derek because your parents trusted him." The implications hit me. Whether they knew it or not, my parents had been accomplices in destroying dozens of lives. Their blind faith in Derek, their willingness to vouch for him, had enabled massive fraud. As Black Friday stretched into evening, my store bustled with supporters and curious shoppers alike. Each sale felt like a small victory, proof that Derek's attempts to destroy me had failed. But the real victory was simpler. I was still standing still, building, still growing. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from the FBI. "Grand jury convenes Monday. Your testimony will be crucial. Derek's attorney is already trying to plead mental illness, claiming family pressure drove him to crime." I almost laughed. Mental illness, the weapon they'd tried to use against me, now turned back on them. But I knew better. Derek wasn't mentally ill. He was a narcissist who'd believed his own lies until reality caught up. Monday would begin the next phase. Grand jury testimony, victim impact statements, the slow grind of justice. But tonight, surrounded by the business I'd built and the community that supported me, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Peace. Monday morning arrived with an unexpected snowstorm, blanketing the city in pristine white that seemed to mock the ugly truths being revealed in the federal courthouse. I arrived early for my grand jury testimony, passing through security with Sarah at my side. In the waiting room, I found my parents already there, looking haggard and out of place in their formal clothes. My mother clutched my father's arm like a lifeline. When she saw me, her face crumbled. "Alana," she whispered, starting to rise. "Don't." I held up my hand. "The restraining order is still in effect. Sarah, please remind them of the legal boundaries." Sarah stepped forward professionally. "Mr. and Mrs. Stevens, you need to maintain at least 50 feet distance from Ms. Stevens. If you need to communicate, it must go through legal counsel." My father's face flushed. "She's our daughter." "You disowned me on Thanksgiving," I reminded him. "You said I was no longer your daughter. The law is simply enforcing your decision." Before they could respond, Agent Thompson appeared. "Ms. Stevens, we're ready for you." The grand jury room was smaller than I'd expected, filled with ordinary citizens tasked with extraordinary decisions. I took my seat and raised my right hand to swear the oath, feeling the weight of truth settle on my shoulders. For 3 hours I testified. Every detail, every piece of evidence, every moment of Derek's deception laid bare. The jurors listened intently as I described the escalating harassment, the conservatorship plot, the forged documents. When I played Mrs. Martinez's recordings of my parents planning to have me institutionalized, several jurors gasped. "Mrs. Stevens," the prosecutor asked, "do you believe your parents were knowing participants in your brother's financial crimes?" I chose my words carefully. "They were willing participants in trying to steal my business and have me declared mentally incompetent. Whether they knew about his broader fraud scheme, I can't say, but they knew he was lying about me, and they supported those lies." When I emerged emotionally drained, I found chaos in the courthouse lobby. My parents were being arrested. FBI agents were reading them their rights, while news cameras captured every moment. My mother saw me and screamed, "You did this! You sent your own parents to jail!" "No," I said quietly, knowing the cameras were rolling. "You did this when you chose to help Derek destroy me. I just refused to be destroyed." As they were led away, my father turned back. For a moment, his mask of anger slipped, revealing something raw and broken underneath. "The house," he said desperately. "Please, Alana, it's all we have left." "It's all I had too," I replied. "My childhood home, the place where you taught me I was worth less than Derek. Now it's going to help women who were told the same thing by their families. It's going to become something good." Sarah guided me out a side entrance to avoid the media crush, but Mariah Santos was waiting by my car. "Just one question," she said, microphone ready. "How does it feel to see your parents arrested?" I considered the question honestly. It feels like justice. Not revenge, not satisfaction. Just justice. They made choices. Now they face consequences. That's how the world is supposed to work. That afternoon, I returned to my store to find it busier than ever. Word had spread about the morning's arrests, and the community response was overwhelming. But the real surprise waited in my office. Aunt Patricia. She looked exactly as I remembered, silver hair in an elegant bun, sharp blue eyes that missed nothing, wearing the kind of timeless style I tried to cultivate in my store. When she saw me, she opened her arms. I hadn't realized how much I needed that hug until I was sobbing into her shoulder, releasing months of tension and pain. "I'm so sorry," Patricia murmured. "I should have come sooner. I should have spoken up years ago." "Why didn't you?" I pulled back, wiping my eyes. Patricia sighed, settling into the chair across from my desk. "Your mother is my younger sister. I watched her spoil Derek from birth while treating you like an afterthought. Every Christmas, every family gathering, it was obvious. But I told myself it wasn't my place to interfere." What changed? Seeing the news, realizing how far they'd gone, and She pulled out her phone, showing me a message thread. Your mother sent me these texts last month asking if I'd testify about your unstable behavior at family gatherings. She wanted me to lie Alana to help them steal your life's work. I read the messages with growing disgust. My mother had been thorough trying to recruit extended family into their conspiracy. I'm not the only one she contacted, Patricia continued. Your cousin Marie, Uncle George, even your godmother Linda. Most ignored her, but a few were considering it. Derek promised them money from the sale of your store. He was trying to turn the entire family against me. He was. But here's what they didn't expect. You inspired loyalty in unexpected places. Patricia pulled out a folder. Statements from family members supporting you. Marie wrote about how you helped her daughter get a job. George mentioned the business advice you gave him that saved his hardware store. Linda told your mother exactly what she thought of the scheme in very colorful language. I laughed despite everything, imagining my straight-laced godmother cursing out my mother. There's more, Patricia said. I've been doing my own investigation. Did you know Derek tried this before in college? Which was? The waves. What? A girlfriend's family. He dated the daughter of a wealthy businessman, convinced them to invest in a startup that never existed. When they threatened to go to the police, your parents paid them off and got Derek transferred to a new school. The pattern started early. My phone buzzed with updates from Sarah. Derek's arraignment was happening across town. Bail set at $5 million. My parents' arraignment would follow charges of conspiracy to commit fraud and attempted false imprisonment. That evening, as snow continued to fall, I held a meeting with my expansion team. David Kim, my lead investor, had called it, and I assumed he wanted to discuss damage control. Instead, he stood before the group with a smile. I called this meeting to announce that in light of recent events, we're accelerating the expansion timeline. Alana has shown extraordinary strength and integrity. Any business that can weather what she's faced deserves our full support. The room erupted in applause. Through my office window, I could see customers still shopping despite the weather, my employees helping them with genuine smiles. This was my real family, built on mutual respect, not blood and obligation. Patricia stayed for dinner and we talked until midnight. She told me stories about my mother's childhood, how jealousy and entitlement had taken root early, how my grandparents had noticed and tried to correct it, but my mother had married my father, a man who believed sons mattered more than daughters. And the pattern solidified. Derek isn't the anomaly, Patricia said sadly. He's the inevitable result of their values. But you, Alana, you're the miracle. You grew up in that toxic soil and became something beautiful anyway. As she prepared to leave for her hotel, she paused at the door. The family is fracturing over this. Some support your parents, others support you. It's going to be messy. It always was messy, I replied. Now it's just visible. What will you do about the house? I smiled, thinking of my plans. The Stevens Family Foundation for Women Entrepreneurs. It launches next month. The house becomes our headquarters. We'll offer microloans, mentorship, and support to women whose families didn't believe in them. Derek wanted to steal my success to cover his failures. Instead, his failure will help other women find their success. Patricia hugged me again. Your grandmother would be so proud. She always said you had her spine. After she left, I stood in my store looking out at the snowy street. Somewhere across town, my parents were spending their first night in jail. Derek was in federal custody, probably still spinning stories about being a victim. But here in the business, they tried to steal, surrounded by the success they'd tried to destroy. I was building something that would outlast their bitterness. My phone rang, an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Us, Alana Stevens. The voice was elderly, refined. This is Margaret Chen. I'm Derek's biggest investor. I lost $3 million. I'm sorry for your loss, Mrs. Chen. I'm not calling for sympathy. I'm calling to say thank you. Your courage in exposing him saved others from losing everything. I was about to invest another $1 million. I only did what was right. That's exactly why it matters. In my 70 years, I've learned that families can produce both poison and antidote. You're the antidote to Derek's poison. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. As I locked up the store and headed home through the falling snow, I thought about poison and antidotes, about patterns and breaking them. My parents had made their choice long ago, to nurture the poison and neglect the antidote. Now they were choking on the consequences of that choice. But I had made my choice too, to survive, to thrive, to transform poison into purpose. Tomorrow would bring more testimony, more revelations, more pain. But tonight I was at peace with my choices. The antidote was working. The federal courthouse became my second home over the following weeks. Between grand jury testimonies, victim depositions, and meetings with prosecutors, I practically lived in those marble corridors. But it was Tuesday, 3 weeks after the arrest, when the real truth about my success finally came to light. I was sitting in a conference room with Agent Thompson and the lead prosecutor reviewing financial documents when Thompson slid a folder across the table. "We need to discuss something," he said carefully. "During our investigation, we discovered some interesting transfers dating back 7 years. My stomach tightened. "What kind of transfers?" "Monthly deposits into your business account during your first year of operation. $5,000 each month, always from the same source. An account belonging to Margaret Stevens. My grandmother. But she died when I was 22 before I opened the store." Thompson smiled. "That's what made us dig deeper. The deposits came from a trust she established. Her lawyer, Richard Huang, has been trying to contact you for years, but your parents always intervened." "Intervened how?" "They told him you were unstable, that any communication should go through them. They've been intercepting letters returning certified mail. We found it all in their home." My hands shook as I opened the folder. Inside were copies of letters dating back 7 years, all addressed to me, all unopened. The return address showed a law firm in Manhattan. "May I?" I gestured to the letters. "We've made copies. These are yours." The first letter was dated a month after my grandmother's funeral. "Dear Alana, your grandmother established a trust specifically for you before her passing. She was very clear. This money was to remain secret from your parents and brother. She wanted to ensure you had the chance to build something of your own free from family interference." I read through 7 years of attempts to reach me, annual statements showing the trust's growth, requests for meetings, concern over my lack of response, all intercepted by my parents who knew I had resources they couldn't control. "How much?" I asked quietly. "The initial deposit was $200,000, Thompson said. "It's worth approximately $1.8 million now." The room spun. My parents had hidden nearly $2 million from me while telling me I was selfish for not selling my store. They'd known all along that grandmother had provided for me, had chosen me. "There's more," Thompson continued. "We found your grandmother's original will, not the one your parents filed with probate, the real one." I thought back to the funeral, how quickly my parents had handled everything. How they'd said grandmother had left everything to be divided equally between them and Uncle Thomas. There had been no mention of grandchildren, no specific bequests. It had seemed odd at the time, but I'd been grieving too deeply to question it. What did she really leave? The house in Vermont, her investment portfolio, and her jewelry collection, all to you, specifically and exclusively to you. The will states, and I quote, "to my granddaughter Alana, who has inherited my spirit along with my eyes. May these resources help you fly free of those who would clip your wings." Tears blurred my vision. Grandmother had seen everything, had tried to protect me even in death, but my parents had stolen even that protection. "Okay, I managed to ask. "Your father filed a different will, one that left everything to her children and nothing to grandchildren." It was dated 2 years later than the real one, making it seem more recent. Your grandmother's lawyer tried to contest it, but without being able to reach you. He had no standing, I finished, and my parents knew I'd never see his letters. Sarah entered the room having been called by Thompson. Her face was grim as she reviewed the documents. "This is massive fraud," she said. "Estate fraud, mail fraud conspiracy. Your parents didn't just steal from Derek's victims. They stole from you for 7 years. I did the math quickly. The house in Vermont was worth at least $1 million. The jewelry, I remembered grandmother's sapphire collection, her vintage Cartier pieces, easily another $1 million. The investment portfolio, who knew? What did they do with it all? I asked. Thompson pulled up financial records. The Vermont house was sold 5 years ago. The money went into accounts controlled by Derek. The jewelry was liquidated piece by piece. The investments were cashed out and funneled into Derek's various businesses. They gave him my inheritance to fund his crimes. Every penny, while telling you to be grateful for what you had, while calling you selfish for not sacrificing your business. They'd already sacrificed your inheritance on the altar of Derek's ego. I stood abruptly needing air. On the courthouse balcony, I gripped the railing and stared at the city below. Everything made sense now. The guilt trips about not helping family, the anger when I refused to sell my store. They'd already stolen everything else from me. My business was the only thing left they couldn't touch. Sarah joined me. "This changes everything. You're not just a witness anymore. You're a victim, one of the biggest victims." "Grandmother knew," I said quietly. "She must have known what they were capable of. That's why she tried to protect me." "She did more than try," Sarah said, holding up her phone. "Richard Huang is on his way. He's been waiting 7 years to fulfill your grandmother's wishes." An hour later, I sat across from Richard Huang, an elegant man in his 70s who'd been my grandmother's lawyer for 40 years. His eyes misted as he shook my hand. "Margaret would be heartbroken to know what happened," he said, "but she'd be so proud of what you've accomplished despite it." He spread documents across the table showing me the full extent of what I'd lost, but then he smiled. "However, your grandmother was cleverer than your parents realized. The trust they couldn't find. It was structured as an educational trust initially, which is why it paid monthly during your first business year, but it converted to a standard trust after that, accumulating returns. Your parents never knew it existed." "Why didn't grandmother tell me?" "She was planning to after you graduated college. But her stroke came suddenly. She only had time to finalize the documents with me before." He paused. "She made me promise to protect you. I failed." "You tried. They intercepted everything." "But not anymore." He pulled out a cashier's check. "The trust, properly managed and with 7 years of growth, $1.8 million. It's yours, Alana, what your grandmother always intended." I stared at the check, seeing not just money, but validation. Grandmother had chosen me, had seen my worth when no one else did, had tried to give me wings just as her will stated. "There's one more thing," Richard said, pulling out a sealed envelope. "She left this for you. I was to give it to you personally, no one else. Your parents never knew it existed." My name was written across the front in grandmother's distinctive handwriting. Inside her final words to me, "My dearest Alana, if you're reading this, then Richard has finally found a way past the barriers I know your parents will erect. I've watched them dismiss your light while polishing Derek's fool's gold. It breaks my heart. You have my entrepreneurial spirit, my stubborn refusal to accept limitations, my belief that women can build empires just as surely as men. Your parents don't understand this because they don't understand us. Use what I've left you to build something magnificent, not to prove them wrong. They'll never admit it anyway, but to prove yourself right, to honor the spark I see in you that they're too blind to notice. And remember, success isn't about what you accumulate, but what you create, not about what you're given, but what you give others. Build something that helps other dismissed daughters find their wings. All my love and faith, grandmother. I was sobbing by the end of Sarah's arm around my shoulders. Even Thompson looked moved. She saw it all, I whispered, years before it happened. The house in Vermont should have been yours, Richard said gently. The jewelry, the investments. We can pursue recovery, but Derek spent it all. I wiped my eyes. It doesn't matter. This matters. Her faith in me matters. That afternoon, news of the estate fraud broke. Maria Santos had somehow gotten wind of it, probably from court filings, and led the evening news with Stephen's family fraud deepens parents stole daughter's millions. My phone exploded with calls. The store was flooded with flowers from well-wishers, but the most unexpected call came from the Federal Detention Center. This is a prepaid call from an inmate at... I almost hung up, then heard Derek's voice. Alana, please, 2 minutes. Against my better judgment, I accepted the call. Let me guess, I said coldly. You want to blame Mom and Dad for stealing my inheritance? I didn't know, he said quickly, about grandmother's will to trust any of it. They told me she left everything to them. And you never questioned why they suddenly had money to fund your schemes. Silence. Then I was desperate. I didn't ask questions. No, you were greedy. You saw money and grabbed it just like you've grabbed everything else your whole life. My inheritance, their retirement, investors' futures, it was all just fuel for your ego. I'm going to prison, Alana. For decades, I've lost everything. You stole everything. There's a difference. I need you to understand. I understand perfectly. You're calling because your lawyer thinks showing remorse might help at sentencing. But you're not sorry, Derek. You're sorry you got caught. That's not... I am sorry for all of it. Then tell the truth. All of it. Every person you stole from every document you forged. Every life you destroyed. Give the FBI everything. Help your victims recover what they can. Take responsibility for once in your life. If I do that, I'll die in prison. Then die with a clear conscience. It's more than your victims got. I hung up and blocked the number. Derek would make his choices as he always had, but they were no longer my concern. That evening, I met with my store managers and key employees. With grandmother's trust finally in my hands, I could accelerate every plan, help more women entrepreneurs create more jobs. Well, we're not just expanding to 3 locations, I announced. We're going to build a chain. Alana's Closet will become a haven for women who've been told they can't, shouldn't, or won't. Every store will prove them wrong. The room erupted in cheers. Jessica was crying. Even David Kim looked emotional. Your grandmother would love this, Sarah said quietly. I touched the letter in my pocket, feeling the paper worn soft from rereading. She does love it. She's been part of it all along. The truth about my success wasn't that I'd built it alone. It was that I'd built it despite those who should have helped with the secret support of one who truly understood. Grandmother's trust hadn't just given me money, it had given me the freedom to become myself. And that was worth more than all the stolen inheritances in the world. The victim impact statements began on a cold January morning 6 weeks after the arrests. The federal courthouse had become a second home to me by then, but this day felt different. Today, Derek's victims would speak their truth, and I would be among them. I arrived early to find the hallway packed with familiar faces from the Victims' Coalition. Eleanor Walsh gripped her walker wearing her best church dress. Robert Kim stood with his wife, both looking years older than when I'd first met them. Harold Patterson nodded gravely as I passed. Ready for this? Eleanor asked me. As ready as anyone can be. The courtroom was standing room only. Media filled the back rows while victims and their families packed the rest. At the defendant's table, Derek sat in an orange jumpsuit, his former swagger completely gone. He'd lost weight, his designer haircut grown out. For the first time in his life, he looked ordinary. My parents sat in the row behind him, out on bail and awaiting their own trial. My mother had aged a decade in 6 weeks. My father stared straight ahead, refusing to acknowledge anyone. They'd hired separate lawyers, I noticed. The united front was crumbling. Judge Catherine Morrison called the court to order. We'll begin with victim impact statements. Each speaker has 10 minutes. Eleanor went first, her voice trembling but determined. My husband died 3 years ago. He left me comfortable, not wealthy. I had $600,000 to last the rest of my life. Derek Stevens took $400,000 of it. He sat in my living room, drank my tea, looked at photos of my grandchildren, and promised me my investment would help young entrepreneurs like himself succeed. She turned to Derek. I eat 1 meal a day now. I've sold my car. I'll probably lose my home. You didn't just steal money. You stole my dignity, my independence, my faith in human kindness. One by one, they spoke. Robert Kim described closing the restaurant his parents had run for 30 years. A teacher named Sandra Phillips explained choosing between medication and food. A veteran told of contemplating suicide after losing his disability benefits to Derek's scheme. Then it was my turn. I walked to the podium, my prepared statement in hand, but when I looked at Derek, I set it aside. Your Honor, I'm Derek Stevens' sister, but I'm also his victim. Not just financially, though I've learned my parents helped him steal a $2 million inheritance from me. I'm a victim of a lifetime of manipulation, gaslighting, and abuse. I turned to face my family. Derek learned early that he could take whatever he wanted. Our parents taught him that. Every time I earned something, academic awards, job promotions, business success, they gave Derek something better. Not because he'd earned it, but because he was the son. My mother started crying. My father's jaw clenched. When I refused to sell my business to pay for Derek's crimes, our parents tried to have me declared mentally incompetent. They kept journals of my supposed symptoms. They hired fake doctors. They were willing to lock me in a psychiatric facility and steal everything I'd built because Derek needed it. I pulled out grandmother's letter, holding it up. Our grandmother saw this coming. She tried to protect me, leaving me resources to build my own life. My parents stole that too, forging documents to redirect my inheritance to Derek. Every dollar he stole from all of you was built on the foundation of what they stole from me. Derek wouldn't meet my eyes, but I wasn't done. You asked me once why I wouldn't help family, I said directly to him. But I did help family. I helped the family I chose. My employees, my customers, my community. I helped other women whose families told them they weren't enough. That's what family does. They build each other up. What you did was destruction disguised as love. I returned to my seat as the courtroom erupted in whispers. More victims spoke, each story another nail in Derek's coffin. By lunch, even the judge looked shaken. The afternoon brought unexpected drama. Derek's lawyer announced his client wished to make a statement. The prosecutor objected, but Judge Morrison allowed it. Derek stood slowly, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. I want to apologize to everyone. I told myself I was building something important, that temporary borrowing would lead to greater success. But that was a lie. I was gambling, desperate, addicted to the image of success. He looked at our parents. You gave me everything and I destroyed it. I used your love as a weapon against others. Then he turned to me. Alana, you were right. On that call, you said I should tell the truth. So here it is. I stole approximately $8.7 million over 5 years. I forged 43 documents. I have records of everything. Where the money went, how I hid it, which offshore accounts still contain funds. I'll provide it all to help recover what I can. The courtroom was silent. This wasn't the Derek I knew, the one who never admitted fault, who always had an excuse. This was a broken man, finally facing himself. I'm also testifying against our parents, he continued, causing my mother to gasp. They were knowing participants in the inheritance fraud. They helped establish my credibility with victims. They were my partners, not my dupes. You ungrateful monster, my father roared, shooting to his feet. We sacrificed everything for you. You sacrificed Alana for me, Derek corrected quietly, and that started all of this. Judge Morrison called for order as my parents were escorted out, my mother screaming about betrayal, while my father threatened to disown Derek. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. They were upset about Derek's betrayal while being tried for betraying me. After court, Sarah and I met with the prosecutor. Derek's cooperation would help recover nearly $2 million from offshore accounts. Not enough to make victims whole, but something. He's looking at 15 to 20 years with cooperation, the prosecutor said. Without it, he'd die in prison. What about my parents? Well, 5 to 10 most likely. The inheritance fraud alone is serious, but conspiring to have you committed adds significant charges. That evening, I held a meeting at the store with the Victims Coalition. We'd established a fund that had raised over $300,000. Not enough to replace what was lost, but enough to keep people in their homes, buy medications, provide hope. Eleanor Walsh pulled me aside. What you did today, speaking up like that, it helped us all understand. This wasn't just about money. It was about power favoritism, the poison of unchecked privilege. My grandmother called me the antidote to Derek's poison. I shared. She was right. You're helping us all heal. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor. Patricia arrived at my store with someone I hadn't seen in 15 years. Uncle Thomas, my father's brother, who'd moved to Australia after a falling out I'd been too young to understand. Alana. Thomas said, his voice rough with emotion. I'm sorry I wasn't here. I should have protected you. We sat in my office as he explained his absence. Your father and I built a business together in our 20s. When it succeeded, he pushed me out, claimed I was trying to steal from him. Sound familiar? Why didn't you fight? I was young, trusted my brother. By the time I realized what happened, he'd rewritten history. The family believed him. I left rather than tear everyone apart. He paused. I should have stayed for you. You're here now. With more than just apologies, he pulled out documents. Your grandmother contacted me before she died. She knew what your parents were capable of, so she gave me something to hold in trust. More money. No, the truth. He spread out papers, financial records, correspondence photos, documentation going back 30 years, your father's business dealings, Derek's early crimes. They covered up proof of systematic fraud. Your grandmother was building a case. Why didn't she use it? She got sick too fast, but she made me promise to give it to you when you were ready, when you were strong enough to use it. He smiled sadly. Took you longer than she expected to break free. I studied the documents, seeing patterns spanning decades. My family's corruption went deeper than even I'd imagined. But more importantly, I saw my grandmother's meticulous work, her determination to protect me, even from beyond the grave. There's something else, Thomas said. A safety deposit box in Switzerland. Grandmother moved assets there when she realized what your parents were planning. Legal assets properly documented. She called it your freedom fund. How much? Enough. She liquidated stocks quietly for years, converting to gold and bonds, maybe $3 million depending on current values. I sat back, overwhelmed. Grandmother hadn't just tried to protect me, she'd built me an escape route, a foundation, a future my parents couldn't touch. That night, I stood in what used to be my parents' house, now transformed into the headquarters of the Stevens Family Foundation. The walls that once echoed with Derek's praise and my dismissal now displayed photos of women entrepreneurs we'd helped launch. Jessica found me in what used to be Derek's room, now a conference space. The Journal wants to do a feature on the foundation, from family fraud to female empowerment. You interested? Set it up. The more people who know about our work, the more women we can help. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. I almost deleted it, then recognized the area code. Switzerland. Ms. Stevens, this is Hans Mueller from the Bank of Geneva. Your grandmother, Margaret Stevens, listed you as a beneficiary of a sealed deposit box. Given recent events regarding your family, we thought it prudent to reach out directly. Please contact us at your earliest convenience." I smiled, hearing grandmother's voice in my head. "Build something magnificent." "I will, grandmother." I whispered to the empty room that once symbolized everything denied to me. "I promise." The reckoning was complete. Justice was being served. And from the ashes of my family's destruction, something beautiful was already growing. The poison had been identified, contained, and quarantined. Now the antidote could truly work. Derek's sentencing arrived on a gray March morning 3 months after his initial arrest. The courthouse steps were crowded with media and victims all waiting to see justice finally served. I arrived with Sarah and Patricia, my small but genuine support system. Inside the courtroom, Derek looked gaunt in his suit, the same one he'd worn to that fateful Thanksgiving now hanging loose on his diminished frame. Our parents sat in the gallery, my mother clutching a rosary, my father staring at his hands. They'd been sentenced the week before, 7 years each for their roles in the fraud and conspiracy. They'd be reporting to federal prison within the month. Judge Morrison reviewed the case with meticulous detail. "Mr. Stevens, you've pled guilty to 37 counts of wire fraud, 18 counts of money laundering, 12 counts of identity theft, and conspiracy to commit false imprisonment. The court has reviewed over 200 victim impact statements and extensive evidence of systematic deception spanning 5 years." She looked up from her notes, fixing Derek with a stern gaze. "While your cooperation has resulted in the recovery of approximately $2 million, this represents less than 25% of stolen funds. Your victims have lost homes, businesses' retirement security, and faith in humanity itself." Derek stood as instructed, his lawyer beside him. For once, he had no words, no charm to deploy. "The court sentences you to 18 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years supervised release. You are ordered to pay full restitution of $8.7 million to your victims enforceable for the remainder of your life." The courtroom erupted in mixed reactions. Some victims wept with relief, others shouted that it wasn't enough. Derek swayed on his feet but remained standing. Furthermore, Judge Morrison continued, "This court orders psychiatric evaluation and mandatory therapy for gambling addiction and narcissistic personality disorder. Mr. Stevens, you destroyed lives with the casual cruelty of someone who never learned consequences. This court intends for you to learn them now." As marshals prepared to lead Derek away, he turned to scan the courtroom. His eyes found mine, and for a moment, I saw the brother I'd once had. The one who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd shared midnight snacks during thunderstorms. Then, the moment passed, and he was just another criminal being led to his fate. "Wait," he said suddenly. The marshals paused. "Your Honor, may I address my sister?" Judge Morrison looked to me. I nodded. Derek faced me fully. "Alana, I know 18 years isn't enough. I know money can't fix what I broke, but I want you to know. That foundation you started in grandmother's memory. Put me to work. Let me use my skills to help the women I would have destroyed. Let me try to balance the scales." "Your skills are manipulation and theft," I said coldly. "Then let me teach others to recognize those tactics. Let me help protect future victims. Please." His voice cracked. "Let me do something good with whatever's left of my life." I studied him, searching for the angle, but all I saw was desperation and maybe finally genuine remorse. "When you're released, if you've truly changed, we'll discuss it. 18 years is a long time to prove yourself." He nodded, tears streaming. "Thank you." As they led him away, our mother broke down completely. "My baby, they're taking my baby." "Your baby is a 34-year-old convicted felon," Patricia said sharply. "Maybe if you'd seen that sooner, none of this would have happened." Outside the courthouse, media swarmed. Maria Santos pushed to the front. "Alana, how do you feel about your brother's sentence?" I feel that justice has been served. Now it's time to focus on rebuilding what was destroyed. Well, will you visit him in prison? No. Derek needs to face his consequences alone without family enabling him. That's how he might actually change. Back at the foundation, we held a reception for the Victims Coalition. Many would never fully recover financially, but the support network we'd built gave them something possibly more valuable: community and hope. Eleanor Walsh pulled me aside. I've been thinking about what your brother said, about teaching others to recognize manipulation. It's not a terrible idea. You think I should trust him? I think redemption is possible for anyone willing to do the work, but 18 years will tell us if he's willing. That evening, I sat in my office reviewing expansion plans when my phone rang. The Federal Detention Center. I'm not accepting his calls, I told the automated system. But it wasn't Derek, it was my mother. Alana, please, she sobbed when the call connected. I need to see you before I report to prison. I need to explain. Explain what? How you stole my inheritance, how you tried to have me committed, how you chose Derek even when you knew he was destroying lives. I was scared, she whispered. Your father said if we didn't support Derek, we'd lose him. I couldn't lose my son. So you chose to lose your daughter instead. I never meant. Yes, you did. Every choice you made, you meant. You just never thought there'd be consequences. I'm sorry. Sorry you got caught, or sorry you did it. Silence stretched between us. Finally, she spoke. Both. I'm sorry for both. Then use your 7 years to figure out which sorry matters more. I hung up and blocked the number. Forgiveness might come someday, but not today. Not when the wounds were still fresh and the work of rebuilding had just begun. A week later, I received a package with no return address. Inside was a letter in Derek's handwriting and a flash drive. Alana. This drive contains everything. Every scheme I ran, every tactic I used, every psychological manipulation I deployed. I've written it as a training manual for recognizing and avoiding people like me. It's the most honest thing I've ever created. I know you don't trust me, you shouldn't. But maybe this can help someone. I'm also including contact information for hidden accounts I didn't tell the FBI about. Another $400,000 that should go to victims. Consider it a down payment on my debt to society. Your brother, if I can still call myself that, Derek. I spent hours reviewing the contents. It was remarkably thorough. A predator's guide written by the predator himself. Disturbing, insightful, and potentially invaluable for training purposes. Sarah looked it over with me. This could be legitimately helpful, like having a reformed burglar teach home security, if he's actually reformed. 18 years will tell. I decided to have experts review the material, potentially incorporating it into our foundation's educational programs. Even Derek's darkness might serve the light if handled carefully. 2 weeks later, my parents reported to their respective federal facilities. I didn't attend their surrender, but Patricia did reporting back that they'd aged years and months. My father maintained his stern silence. My mother wept continuously. 7 years might break them or remake them, Patricia observed. Time will tell. The local news covered the family's complete downfall extensively. From suburban success to federal prison, the Stevens family fraud became a cautionary tale about greed, favoritism, and the price of enabling corruption. But I focused on building. The foundation helped launch 12 new businesses in the first quarter. The store expansion proceeded ahead of schedule. My team grew stronger, bound by shared purpose rather than blood. One evening, while reviewing applications for our micro-loan program, Jessica brought me a familiar-looking submission. You need to see this, she said. The application was from Sandra Phillips, the teacher who'd lost her savings to Derek. She wanted to open a tutoring center for underprivileged kids, using her experience to help others avoid financial predators. From victim to victor, I murmured, approving the loan immediately. This was Derek's true downfall. Not just his prison sentence, but the transformation of his victims into warriors. Every business we helped launch, every woman who refused to be limited by others' expectations, every person who learned to recognize manipulation because of what he'd done. They were all evidence of his complete defeat. He'd tried to build an empire on lies and theft. Instead, he'd created an army of truth-tellers and builders. His legacy wasn't the millions he'd stolen, but the millions of dreams his exposure had helped protect. The antidote hadn't just neutralized the poison, it had transformed it into vaccine protecting countless others from similar fates. And that was a victory worth more than all the money Derek had ever stolen. 6 months after Derek's sentencing on a brilliant September morning, I stood in the renovated house that had once been my childhood prison. The Stevens Family Foundation's headquarters buzzed with activity. Where Derek's trophies once lined the walls, photos of successful women entrepreneurs now smiled back. My parents' formal living room had become a welcoming conference space. The dining room where I'd been dismissed and belittled now hosted strategy sessions for women building their dreams. Alana, the documentary crew, is here, Jessica announced, poking her head into what used to be my father's study, now my office. PBS had decided to film a special about our foundation titled From Ashes to Empowerment. They'd been following several of our grant recipients for months, documenting their journeys from victims to victors. The director, Michelle Harper, was herself a survivor of family financial abuse. "Your story resonated with me," she'd said during our first meeting. "The idea that the very house where you were denied can become a place where others are lifted up. It's powerful." As the crew set up in the main conference room, I reviewed the statistics we'd achieved in just 6 months. 42 businesses launched, over 300 women served through workshops and counseling, $2.5 million in microloans distributed. The numbers were good, but the stories were better. Sandra Phillips arrived first for the group interview. Her tutoring center was thriving, serving over 60 students. "I teach financial literacy alongside academics now," she told the cameras. "No child leaves my center without understanding how to protect themselves from people like Derek." Eleanor Walsh came next, moving slowly but steadily with her walker. At 81, she'd become our oldest entrepreneur, starting an online consulting business for senior fraud prevention. I figured if I could fall for Derek's schemes with all my experience, I could help others avoid the same trap. As more women arrived, restaurant owners, tech consultants, artists, retailers, the house filled with an energy it had never known. These weren't victims anymore. They were survivors, builders, warriors. "Can you talk about the transformation of this space?" Michelle asked during my individual interview. I looked around the room, remembering Christmas mornings when I'd watch Derek open gift after gift while mine were afterthoughts. This house was built on a foundation of inequality. My parents believed sons mattered more than daughters, that male ambition deserved support, while female ambition deserved suspicion. Derek absorbed that belief, weaponized it, used it to justify his crimes. And now it's a sanctuary for women whose families shared those beliefs. Every room that once echoed with my dismissal now rings with someone else's potential being recognized. My grandmother would love the poetic justice of it. "Oh, speaking of your grandmother, can you tell us about the latest development?" I smiled, pulling out the letter that had arrived the week before. The Swiss accounts my grandmother established contained more than money. She'd deposited letters, dozens of them written over years addressed to me. She knew my parents might intercept them if mailed, so she locked them away, trusting I'd find them eventually. What did they say? They were business advice, life lessons, encouragement for the dark times she knew I'd face. One letter for every year she expected to miss. She'd planned to give them to me herself, but her stroke prevented it. So she made sure they'd wait for me. I didn't mention the most precious letter, the one labeled, "For when they finally show their true colors." In it, grandmother had written, My dearest girl, if you're reading this, then your parents and Derek have revealed themselves as the small, grasping people I fear they are. Do not let their smallness make you small. Do not let their cruelty make you cruel. Build something beautiful from the ashes of their ugliness. Love, grandmother. The documentary crew spent 3 days with us, capturing testimonials, touring the facilities, interviewing employees and grant recipients. On the final day, they filmed our monthly Celebration of Success dinner, where Foundation members shared victories and challenges. Patricia attended as she always did, offering wisdom and wit. You know, she told the group, Alana's parents always said she'd never amount to anything without family support. They were right. She amounted to everything without their support. The room burst into knowing laughter. These women understood the bitter irony of families who became obstacles instead of advocates. That evening after the crew left, I found myself alone in the kitchen. The same kitchen where my mother had told me to be grateful Derek even acknowledged my existence. My phone buzzed with a notification from the prison email system. Derek had sent a message through the approved channels. Alana, I saw a news piece about the foundation. You've built something incredible. I've been working with the prison counselor, really working, not for early release or forgiveness, but because I need to understand how I became such a monster. I think about our grandmother a lot, how disappointed she'd be in me, how proud she'd be of you. I'm teaching financial literacy to other inmates now, showing them how I manipulated people so they won't fall for similar schemes. It's small, but it's honest work. Your brother Derek. I stared at the message for a long time. Was this another manipulation, or was 18 years of concrete and consequences actually changing him? Time would tell. Sarah arrived with champagne and Chinese takeout, our tradition for celebrating milestones. The foundation's accounts are incredible, she announced. Between grants, private donations, and the documentary attention, we'll be able to help hundreds more women next year. Grandmother's Swiss accounts helped, I noted. The $3 million had been carefully invested, creating sustainable funding for the foundation's future. Your grandmother was a genius, Sarah agreed, but you're the one who turned her gift into this. She gestured around the transformed house. How many people could have emerged from your family situation with such grace? I had help. Mrs. Martinez, Patricia, you my employees, even Derek's victims who became my allies. Family isn't just blood. It's whoever stands with you when blood turns against you. My phone rang. Maria Santos from Channel 7. Alana, I wanted to give you a heads up. Your mother gave a jailhouse interview to a tabloid. It's not flattering to you. Let me guess. I'm the ungrateful daughter who destroyed the family. Pretty much. She claims you manipulated Derek into crime to steal the family legacy. I laughed, surprising Maria. Let her talk. Every lie she tells just confirms why I was right to expose them. The truth doesn't need defending. After we hung up, Sarah showed me the online article. My mother in orange jumpsuit and gray roots showing painted herself as a victim of her manipulative daughter. The comments section, however, told a different story. Hundreds of people who'd followed the case, defended me, shared their own stories of toxic families, praised the foundation's work. The court of public opinion has ruled, Sarah noted with satisfaction. That night, I stood on the house's back deck, looking over the yard where Derek and I had played as children, before it all went wrong, before golden child and scapegoat became our assigned roles, before love became leverage and family became a weapon. My phone lit up with messages from foundation members sharing daily victories. A new contract signed, a loan paid off, a daughter inspired by her mother's courage. This was my family now. Chosen, not given. Bonded by purpose, not blood. United in building up, not tearing down. Inside the house hummed with potential. Tomorrow would bring new applicants, new challenges, new opportunities to transform pain into power. The Stevens family legacy of lies and favoritism was dead. In its place, grew something stronger, a legacy of women refusing to be limited by others' expectations. I thought about my parents in their cells clinging to their delusions, about Derek possibly changing or possibly just adapting, about grandmother whose foresight had made all this possible, about every woman who'd walked through these doors carrying dreams others had tried to crush. The new beginning wasn't just mine, it belonged to all of us, the dismissed daughters, the underestimated sisters, the women who built empires from the ashes of others' contempt. We were the antidote, and we were spreading.